Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday, wherever you're at. For me, it's actually snowing here in Colorado. Yesterday, it was in the 70s, and we were walking, and it was windy and crazy. And now, today, we have snow. So, today's tea time, I'm actually really excited because I had a moment this week where my lovely need for a certain organization took over. And I was trying to find a particular kind of tea, couldn't find it. And so I reorganized my entire tea collection. If you want to look back through my notes, you'll see where I showed off pictures of my tea collection and how I organized and kind of sorted it. I didn't show the final product. There's really not much to see. It just, it doesn't look very fantastic. But what I realized when I was making my tea and organizing that tea collection is that I have a really bad habit of when I have a really delicious tea, I'll save like the last bag or enough of the last loose tea to make one cup. And then I never do it. It's like I don't want to let go of that really wonderful, lovely thing. And so I just don't. And I save it. And I would say about half of the tea that I went through, that was the case. And I thought, this is kind of a metaphor for my life in a lot of ways. You hoard something and you hold on to it because you don't want to let that last little precious thing go, except then what do you then have room for? My tea cabinet and my tea collection, it's so cluttered, it's so full. I can't find all my teas. And I never did find the tea I was looking for. I may just be out of it. But I think about all the things in life that we just hang on to just in case. And we never fully get to use it. And so today's tea, it's called C'est Parfait. It is by one of my favorite tea makers, Lupicia. And this is another herbal blend. Once again, it's afternoon. I did make myself a cup of tea earlier this week that was amazing, that I do want to make for one of these lives, just because it's really cool and I want to show it off. But I have to do that in the morning because it is a caffeinated tea. But this tea has hibiscus, rosehip, and cassis, which makes a beautiful ruby colored tea. And so I started to pour myself a cup, but honestly, it was so pretty. I wanted to do it again on camera. I mean, look at how pretty that is. It's so beautiful. And very tasty, very fruity. So this is today's teacup tea set. I actually don't know the origin of this one. I think it might be something that I purchased. At one time, I had tea parties for all my girlfriends, and I invited them over, and we did tea. And I went to the thrift store and bought some mismatched teacups and saucers and things, just for a variety of colors. Well, the teacup and saucer match because those have to match, but just a variety of teacup patterns. And then I let people bring home the teacup. And I keep thinking I'd like to go back to that because I am using my old faithful teapot. This is the one I always use when it's just me. I have a lot of really pretty teapots, but they're meant for more people. And I don't know if we can show off. No, it doesn't show up very good on the camera, but I was going to just show you how pretty just the blend of herbs looked in this tea. And that's part of it. Yeah, I think, gosh, I've missed out on this really beautiful tea. And sure, this is, you can see from the flat bag, this finally is the very last of it. I won't have this tea again. But now there's room for me to enjoy others. And I used to order tea all the time from Lupicia. And I just stopped because I have so much of it. I need to drink it all. I decided that my tea purchases, and I made this decision a couple years ago, that we're going to be very intentional now. If I purchase a tea, it's going to be because I'm out of something, or when I travel, I do like to buy tea as a souvenir. I'm kind of sad because Lupicia used to have a store. And I remember going to the Lupicia store and being able to buy all the different teas. You can still get them in the mail, and I believe they still have a store in Hawaii. So you can still get the tea. It's still delicious, but I backed off on what I was buying. And I did look up on the website, make sure they were still around, all that kind of stuff. And they have so many cool new teas. I was like, oh, well, if I drink all the tea that I have, then there's room for me to buy more. And then I can try even more cool new varieties. And it was also interesting because one of the varieties that I picked up was, it has chamomile in it, and I'm allergic to chamomile. And so I was like, so I've been holding on to this tea and I can't even drink it. So I have it in a little stash set aside so that I have a couple of tea loving friends. The first one that I see gets it. So that is what I'm going to do with that tea. And so I think a lot about that. And so this weekend, it's been a very quiet weekend. I had a strangely busy week last week and I was exhausted. So I intentionally didn't make plans. And then I just kind of did a lot of piddling yesterday, and I've been doing some cleaning and rearranging that whole exercise in cleaning out my tea collection. It really was invigorating and reminded me that sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we have to take stock of what we have and organize it and sort it and decide what we're going to do with it. And so it was really interesting for me to take a look at what I have. And oftentimes we think that we're lacking in a particular resource. And then once you take that time to take stock of it, you realize, oh my goodness, I have everything I need. I don't need anything else. And so that's what I did. And today I've been alternating between doing a few chores around the house and my Sunday cleaning ritual, which I haven't gone very deep into yet today. I haven't done all the things I normally do on a Sunday because I was kind of lazy, and the writing bug struck me, which is super cool because as some of you know, I've been struggling with writing and off and on. And so I'm working on a bunch of different projects, and it was really interesting to me. I got inspired watching or talking to some friends and realizing that I am making it so big of a project, a bigger project than it needs to be. I just need to sit down and get it done. And amazingly, I went through my workflow and started taking a look at what I have. And I finished 2 short stories. I've got this other weird dystopian that I was thinking about. That one is in the plotting process, and I've got a couple chapters of that written. And then this other cozy thing that is a fun little project that I got inspired to do with some girlfriends. And I'm like, wow, I've got all these projects. How fun is that? And what's really nice is that I am not putting any pressure on myself to have a timeline or any of that. So I'm telling you about these book projects. You may or may not ever see them, and that's okay. I was just reading a post. I shouldn't say that. I read the title of the post. I haven't read the actual post by my friend Becca Syme, and I talk about her and her strengths for writers. And the headline of the post was essentially like, as a writer, you don't have to be productive writing all the time, something along those lines. And one of the things I learned from her about my personality style is that I am a thinker. My top two strengths are ideation and intellection. And so essentially, I need a lot of processing and thinking time. And once that happens, once all of that stuff percolates and it finally comes out, boom, it just kind of explodes, which I think is what is happening with my writing. And it's been super cool to see that just exploding, and even how the different ways that it plays out that I wasn't expecting. Like I said, I have always been like, I don't want to write a dystopian. I don't really get the whole dystopian thing. And here I am, this dystopian idea is super cool. I'm having so much fun. And the point of creating sometimes is to simply find the joy in the creation. It doesn't have to be, oh, there's a purpose to this. Oh, there has to be a way to monetize this. Sometimes it's just, I'm going to have fun and create. And sometimes it's, I'm going to play around and see what happens. And so I've been doing that the past couple of days. I started Friday night, actually. I played around a little bit, and I was kind of mad. I had dinner with some friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. And so the friend texted me and said, hey, can we push this back a little bit? I was like, oh yeah, no problem. I was kind of glad because I was on a roll with some of my writing, and it was cool because I haven't felt that in a long time. I haven't gotten to experience that. And when I was at dinner with them, and one of the things they asked me was about my writing and where I'm at with that, and do I have new books coming out? And I'm like, so much was taken out of me with the divorce. Like I lost so much that this is still my recovery time. And I'm still playing and having fun and finding my voice as a writer. Every once in a while, people ask me if I'm going to write for Love Inspired again. And my answer right now is probably not, which is really hard to see, because a lot of my friends who are writing some of the same stuff that I wrote, they're hitting the New York Times bestseller list now with Love Inspired. And I was like, oh man, if I hadn't let that go, maybe I could be there. And then I was like, yeah, but is that my journey? And right now my answer is no. And it was funny, I said that to those friends at dinner, and they were like, yeah, that's cool, because if your goal is to hit the New York Times, you will. It's just going to be some other way. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. And like right now, it's not necessarily a goal. It's just one of those kind of, that would be nice, but not something I'm actively striving for. And it's really good to sit down with yourself and figure out what are those things that are worth actively striving for, and what can I just sit with is, that would be nice. And you can always change your mind. You can always make a different decision or go a different direction. But it's really good to just be able to say, okay, well, that might be for me, but it's not for me right now. And that's why I'm with a lot of my writing projects. I have a million ideas, a million things that I'm working on. And part of why I started this cozy fantasy that I'm working on now is that same idea of hoarding. Like I've got all these files and all these bits and pieces of stories, and why am I hoarding them? Why can't I just work on them? And to be fair, some of them it's not time to work on them right now. But some of it's like there's zero reason why I'm not doing it other than I'm just not. So I'm really trying to be mindful about what I'm doing and why, and taking a look at the stories and figuring out which stories I want to work on. And part of that is the rediscovering who I am as a writer. And maybe rediscovering isn't the right word. I've been through such a profound change in my life that I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the person who wrote those books anymore. So what does the person that I am now, what does she have to say? What does she have to write about? And that's been the joy of exploration. I think sometimes we get really bogged down in this idea of having to be in a particular niche and being marketable, and what's your whole plan for everything that you're doing in writing, that we lose that joy of writing. And even though I always enjoyed what I was writing when I was writing it, there's something really magical that's happening for me right now where it's, I have this cool idea. Let me play with that. Oh, this cool idea. Let me play with that. And it's fun. And I haven't finished a lot of things, but I'm really proud that I did finish 2 short stories. And I sent them to a friend. We're doing kind of a fun little co-project together with short stories and putting together the short story collection. And my friend loved them. My friend was like, oh my goodness, this is so great. So it's working. It just isn't always working the way we want it to work. And maybe it is like the tea, and that, tea, this particular one says steep 3 to 5 minutes, but maybe my tea, the Danica tea that is who I am as a writer, just needs to steep longer. And so what I want to share with you about all of this is that knowledge that your tea is just steeping too. Maybe you aren't like me, high intellection, high ideation, but there's something in you that still needs to steep. So if what you're wanting to happen, if where you're going and what your dreams are, maybe they are still in this amorphous blob, that's okay. You're just steeping. And what I do hope is that rather than being like me and letting all these teas just sit and not be drunk, think about how can you use that now? How can you use those teas? How can you at least play around with the writing, with what you want to work on, with those ideas? I still have a million different books that I want to write. I told you these are 3 separate genres here. I never thought I would do that. And here I am. And some of the other story ideas that I'm steeping are, believe it or not, 3 other different genres. And I'm okay with that. Because again, I'm finding myself and I'm figuring out where I want to write and what I want to write. And that's the joke that I always say when I'm recording the podcast with my friend Steph, our Brave New Bookshelf podcast, is that one of these days, somebody is going to be like, oh my gosh, Danica's got like 10 new books out right now. And my answer is going to be, yeah, I do. Because I've been marinating and steeping these books for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years now. They're there. They're just steeping. And at some point, I'll put them all out. And obviously, again, I'm talking right now 6 separate genres. That some of them will be under pen names, and some of those pen names I will share, some of them I won't. This project I've been with a friend, it's a pen name we're doing together, and we've decided not to share. But like, how fun that I have options. And really the challenge is that knowing I have all these options, that at some point I do need to do something with them. At some point I will need to brew the tea. Because yes, it needs to steep, it needs to do all of those wonderful magical things that it does inside me. But if I wait too long, I'm going to have this giant unmanageable cupboard of tea. And I kind of do have that with story ideas. But that's another thing that I did this week is I sat down with a friend who has amazing organizing capability. And she said, I can help you. And so she is going to create a system to help me go through my hard drive and all the different stories and organize them into something other than the big rat's nest pile that they all are. I know writers, you can relate to this. It's draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, final draft 1, final draft 2. I have a million of those. And so we're going to figure out a way to do that. And I'm really excited to use that capability. We talk about AI a lot. And so this friend of mine, she is I forgot what the title is, but basically for the school district, she is the head of AI education in the school district. And so she teaches the school district how to implement AI. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take some AI tools, we're going to apply it to all these crazy folders and files that I have and make it organized, which I'm really excited about. And so maybe then I can see that all of these messes of drafts and things, they're not as far off as I think they are. And so maybe I will get some more of my own personal Danica tea out to the world. And maybe I won't. And like I said, right now, that's part of the adventure, is that acceptance of where I am and to be okay with where I'm at. And I hope for those of you who are struggling out there, or if you're not sure what you want to do, where you want to go with your writing, or even what you want to do with your life, that's also okay. You can take time, marinate in it. At some point, you'll need to take action. But if the answer right now is not now, that's okay too. So I hope you have a great rest of the Sunday, and I will talk to you again for tea again next week. Oh, I pushed the wrong button.